Did I create a monster? About 15 years ago, my best girl and I went out to bars 3 to 4 nights a week and generally met some interesting people and made new friends. There were a few bars we hit up more than others, and one in particular where we knew the bartender, who was also the manager, pretty well. We went the week of Halloween, and each night their staff would dress up in a different costume. This was when we came across Ron. He was bouncing at this bar and didn't even catch my eye in the slightest as I gave him my ID to get in. My girl and I hung out, drank and danced, met some people, then headed up to the bar to chat with our friend. He asked me what I thought about Ron. I had no idea who he meant, and he gestured to the bouncer, to which I was like, meh. He was older looking, very muscular, turned out to be a major gym rat. I was 22, dressed in black and skulls with platforms. Didn't seem my type on the outside, but bartender friend vouched for him, said he was a really cool guy. He asked if he could give Ron my number, and I figured it would be okay. I heard from him the next day, and he wants to hang out. During that time, I lived with my aunt and my uncle, who was a pastor, so he invited me to meet at his place, and we would just go have a casual hang somewhere. Simple, middle of the day chill. I get there, and his apartment door is wide open, and his much better looking, married, and closer to my age, best friend is there. He seems nice enough, and I didn't feel unsafe as I left the door wide open. He mentions he needs to grab a few office supplies, so the three of us pile in his douchey car and head to an office supply store. We go in, and as we walk in, a pretty girl walks by and he does the head thing and completely stares at her. We aren't together, but I found it to be rude. So later in the car, I mention it. I tell him, hey look, I know we're just hanging out, but don't disrespect me like that. Everyone looks, but be less obvious and don't make me look like an ass in public. He laughs and tells me that it's hot that I stood up for myself, especially on our first hangout. Okay. We get back to his place, and as we walk inside, he says, I like that. You're gonna have a ring on your finger by December. Remember, we met Halloween week. So anyway, his friend leaves, we get some drinks and take out and just talk. Turns out, he's from the same tiny town that my parents are from, which is 6 hours south of us. He's a Desert Storm veteran, which made him more than 20 years older than me, and was back in school to finish his degree. He also worked full-time during the week and bounced at night. Seemed decent. He asked about my tattoos, which I have a lot, and we talked about my love of horror and fascination with true crime and serial killers. He seems interested, but says he doesn't know much about them. So I tell him I'll lend him my encyclopedia of serial killers so it can be like a crash course for him. Maybe a week later, we hang out again and I bring him the book. We started hanging out a lot, and I even slept there a few times. One day we were hanging out and drinking heavily. He said something to me that felt very much like he was getting way too comfortable, way too fast, like telling me to do something. I told him not to speak to me that way, and he turned to walk away when my head jerks back. He grabbed my hair at the base of my neck. I grabbed his hand and he tried to laugh it off and apologize, saying he didn't mean to be that rough, and tried to act like it was some sort of foreplay, but I cut that off real quick. I wanted to leave but was already very buzzed, so I just sat and he said he was going to do some work. I thought I would just let the buzz wear off, head home, and never talk to this guy again. While I'm sitting and he's working, he suddenly decides to tell me in graphic detail about his favorite serial killer in the book so far, and why. I think the way he's talking about it seems off, but again, I'm just waiting out my buzz. He starts working on a sociology assignment that is studying urban legends and such. He plays videos with horrible creepy content, and it's creeping me out. I asked him if he could wait till I'm gone to play it out loud or put on headphones, and he laughs at me. Tells me he can't believe I'm such a poser. Tells me, you have all these tattoos and skulls, yet you're that afraid. You look all goth and punk rock, but you're terrified. He laughs this scary laugh. He's really enjoying that this creeps me out. I don't want to drive even mildly buzzed. I tell him that his reaction is really scaring me. Don't get me wrong, I love scary things, but I realize this guy is enjoying watching me squirm in a really sick way, and he loves it. His face gets completely serious, and he suddenly tells me that he has this machete under his mattress. I look and see the handle barely sticking out. He tells me he could make me disappear and nobody would ever find my body. In that moment, my adrenaline hit. I grabbed my bag and ran to my car. He sort of slowly hovered behind me, laughing at me and telling me not to leave. I am stone cold sober at this point and start my car, take off about 2 minutes down the road by the mall and just park and slow my breathing down. I call my girl and just unload. For the next week, he texts and calls me over and over, switching between begging me to give him another chance and berating me, calling me a poser and a fake. I tell our bartender friend and he can't believe that Ron did all of those things. He only works with him a few more times and they don't talk. Ron sets his sights on someone new, another chick in her early 20s. Her family owns a Vietnamese restaurant in the same strip as the bar. Bartender tells us Ron had just started seeing her and she ended up pregnant immediately. I asked bartender to warn her or give her my number, but he never saw her again. I hope and pray that she didn't get stuck with Ron, and every time I'm in that area, I pray that I don't run into him again. He can keep the encyclopedia. I just hope he hasn't picked up any tips from it. Okay, so I'm not conventionally pretty, nor classically pretty. I'm the Duffy in any friend group I'm in. I never worried about being hit on, disrespected, or kidnapped. I never had to worry about my own safety when going out, as I was never the one anyone wanted to get to know or be around because I'm so plain and it's always me that has to be on the lookout for my friends, male and female alike. Now, I like to go to a local bar, almost daily. I don't drink there, I just get a normal Coke and wait for my ride home. It's my usual hangout spot after work, so I just sit and chill and mind my own business. Well, a few weeks ago, I had just gotten off work and was chilling at my usual spot and sipping on my drink while working on a new pendant I was making. I started wire wrapping crystals into jewelry. I didn't think anyone would try to talk to me since I knew I basically blended into the walls, even though the staff knew me and paid me slight attention and are nice to me. But this weird guy I'd never seen before came over and sat at my table across from me. I was surprised and looked up at him and struck up a small conversation that I can't even remember how I started. But he started to ask me a few questions about myself that I thought were normal and all flowed together, so I didn't think much of it. I had drank 3 glasses of soda by then and had to use the restroom, so I grabbed my phone and purse and went to the bathroom. I came out a few minutes later and went back to working on my jewelry. I called a waitress over and asked her for a new drink, and she nodded, as it had always been ingrained in me that you never leave your drink unattended, and if you do, just have it remade or leave it to the bartender. As she was going to grab for my old drink, which only had a few sips taken out of it, the guy got a bit huffy at me, saying I was being wasteful for just ordering a new drink. I looked at him with a raised eyebrow in confusion. I asked him why it was his business if I did. It was my money after all, and the refills were free. He then said I was making more work for the waitress for no reason. This annoyed me, and I told him again that it was my business and that if he didn't like it, he can always leave. He then tried to wave the waitress off with letting her change my drink, but I'd had enough of this nonsense and told him flat out, "Then you drink it if you think it's such a waste." It seemed to have caught him off guard, and he looked at me shocked, then a bit angry before leaving. I then looked at the drink and handed it to the waitress and told her that something didn't feel right about the guy, and asked if she could tell the bartender to keep an eye on him and dump out my drink and just bring me water from then on. I left for home after being picked up shortly after and found out the next day after work that he had been arrested for assault. I didn't find out till today what exactly happened. Apparently, he had gotten into a fight with the bartender working that night. The bartender caught him putting something into a girl's drink when she wasn't looking, and he stopped her from drinking it. The guy got mad and it started a whole fight. The cops were called and now he's awaiting trial. Seems like he was trying to see if he can get someone like me who always had her guard down for herself because my confidence was low. He thought I'd be an easy mark with just a little attention. But when I didn't drink my drink when I came back, he had to try it on another girl. What was she planning to do to me? One time I went to the bar with one of my friends. I had just turned 21, so I haven't been to many bars up to that point. My friend was drinking on the way to the bar, so he was already pretty drunk when we got there. When I sat at the bar, a cute girl came and talked to me and my friend. She said her name was Candace, and I noticed she had really, really bright red hair. Obviously dyed. It was pretty, but unnatural. Anyway, and this girl was flirting with me and my friend. She could tell my friend was already very drunk. To be honest, I played along like I was drunk already too, since it seemed to be working for my friend. I didn't know if she was just trying to get free drinks, so I told her we didn't have much money. She offered to buy us drinks. She kept buying us drinks, and I started to get confused as to who she liked between me and my friend. My friend got up to go to the bathroom. Before he came back, he was kicked out by the bouncers for being way too drunk. Candace and I went outside with him. She kept telling him to go home with her. He was so out of it he could barely answer her. I told her he was too drunk and that I couldn't let him go anywhere. I didn't want him to wake up hungover in some random house with no car and no idea what happened. But this girl kept pushing it, saying that she would take care of him, but I told her no because I had to stay with him. It was my responsibility. I told her the only way he was going anywhere was if I tagged along. I assumed she thought I was jealous or cock-blocking, but my friend could barely stand and lost interest in Candace already at that point. She immediately started flirting with me and offered to get my friend a taxi to drive him home and said we could go to her place alone. I did have a few drinks myself and I was pretty buzzed, so I agreed. We took my friend to the taxi and walked to her car. I slightly stumbled on the way to her car. "Wow, you're pretty drunk, huh?" she said, smiling as she held onto my arm. "Yeah," I said. I don't know why, but I just felt slightly shy and anxious. Everything was just happening too easy for me, so I felt uneasy about it. We got in her car and we drove down the street. "Want to stop at the liquor store and get some more to drink? I'll buy it, so don't worry about paying," she offered. I didn't want to drink any more than I already did. I was already buzzed and wanted to be able to carry myself throughout the rest of the night. Sometimes I make myself look stupid when I'm drunk, so I didn't want to ruin anything with Candace more than I already did earlier with telling her my friend was too drunk. I told her I was already drunk enough, but she insisted. I didn't want to seem lame, so I told her to get me a pint of liquor with some apple juice to chase it. She went in the store and came out with a lot more than just a pint. I assumed she wanted to drink more also, and that's why she got a fifth instead of a pint. On the car ride, we passed the bottle back and forth, but she took tiny sips. I tried to as well, but she kept passing me the bottle and telling me to drink. I somehow managed to drink all of my apple juice and pretended to drink the bottle by spitting the liquor in the apple juice bottle. I tossed the juice bottle full of liquor out the window before she saw it. I didn't want her to know I was acting drunker than I was. I took a couple more sips of liquor and finished the bottle. Throughout the car ride, I called her the wrong name a couple of times to get a reaction out of her. She didn't react to it. She just kept letting me call her Carla without correcting me. For some reason, since the beginning, I thought she lied to me about her name. We drove up to her house. I pretended to trip and stumble into her front door. She helped me walk inside by holding me up. She opened her front door and we walked in her house. She closed it and locked it. I told her that I had to use the bathroom. I walked into her bathroom, locked the door, and looked in the mirror. I just felt strange. I felt like something was off. I felt myself becoming more drunk from finishing the bottle earlier. I turned on the sink to make noise and made myself puke up the liquor I drank. I flushed and went to the sink and started drinking the tap water out of my hands to sober up. I just didn't want to be drunk, but I still wanted to hook up with Candace, so I pretended to be drunk. I turned the sink off and I could hear her talking to someone. "He's drunk as hell. He can barely stand up. You do it." Who was she talking to? And do what? I walked out of the bathroom and into the living room. The moment I walked in the living room, I saw her walking into another room. All I could see was the back of her head, that strange, very bright red hair, go into another room. The living room was also pretty dark, so I couldn't really see her face. "Hey, where you going?" I slurred like I was drunk. She walked back into the dark living room, walked up to me, and said, "Let's go in my room." I looked at her bright red hair and then into her eyes. They were different. Her face was different. It was another girl with the same hair. That's when I realized it was a wig the entire time. My heart felt like it stopped, but I tried to look like I had no idea it was a different girl. I kind of smiled at her and told her I just needed to use the bathroom one more time and told her sorry I was so drunk. She said, "It's fine, just hurry up in there." I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I heard her whisper something to someone again. This time, I think I heard a male voice whisper back. I honestly didn't concentrate on listening to exactly what she said. Something sketchy was going on and I had to get the hell out of the house. I opened the bathroom window and jumped straight out of it and ran faster than I have ever ran in my life. I didn't look back or anything. I just ran through the backyard, jumped the fence, ran through someone else's yard, hit a road, and ran towards the main road. I kept running until I saw a 24-hour convenience store. I ran into the store and stood straight at the front of the store in front of the camera. I called a taxi and went home. What was she or they planning that night? Why was she trying to get my friend and I so drunk? I thought maybe a robbery, but she kept spending money on us. She kept buying us drinks and even paid for my friend's taxi. What was in that room they tried to lure me into? The next day after this incident, I went back to the house with a couple of friends to see just what was going on. Nobody was there. No cars, no people, nothing. Just an empty house. I ended up finding out that the house was a summer rental, and whoever those people were, they broke into that house and used it only for that night and never came back.